welcome to my channel where I talk about books and bookish things. This is my September roundup and a buckle up because it's a big one. I read 26 books in September. It's actually only the 29th of September today when I'm recording this, because that's more than enough books, isn't it, frankly? Some of them were short though, so, you know, and it doesn't matter if you read 1 or 50, as long as you enjoy it. But I'm going to go through them quick fire. Well, you know, as quick as I can, because I do go on a bit. You've probably realised that. So I'm going to start with all the ebooks. Now, I have a lot of physical books, as you can see, and quite a lot of them I haven't read yet. So October is going to be full of mainly physical books, because I need to get that down. But I love reading on my ebook. I'm disabled, and so I find sometimes holding a book difficult. And I love my ebook. I read quicker. Is that a thing? Do other people get that? I read quicker when I'm on my Kindle. It's weird, isn't it? I suppose because it's not so uncomfortable. Don't know. I also didn't read any audiobooks this month. I've decided to cancel my Audible. I know some people love it. I just can't get into it at all. I don't think it's fast enough for me. Even at 2 times speed, it's not as fast as I can read. So I get annoyed because I'm like, get to the next bit. Anyway, and so these are all ebooks and physical books this month. I better just move around so I can grab them. The physical ones, that is. As I say, I've got a mix. Where am I going to put that? Oh, I can go down there. Well, I can go there as well. So we'll start with the ebooks, and I've had to make notes. I had to list the books because I'm going to forget them. We're going to fling them up on the screen over here. And so we'll start off. So these are in no order as I've read them. These are just how they came up on my list. So the first book is A Path Through the Forest by Alicia Galvin. This is a horror compilation, and these are really creepy, chilling tales, all about people who've decided to take the left-hand path, and that may not have been the best option. Do you know what I mean? They are dark and really quite haunting tales, and this is my first book by this author. I really enjoyed it. They're easy. I do love an anthology or a compilation. Anthology tends to be lots of different authors done it, and a compilation is just one. But they're so good just to pick up and put down. And not that I do that very often. And sometimes I flit between the stories. Sometimes I read them out of order just because I like a little bit of chaos in my life. Do you know what I mean? But this is such a good compilation of short stories by this author. She's got a new book out at the moment. She's an indie author as well. I love supporting indies. Just really good, creepy little horror jewels. Do you know what I mean? So worth a read. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited, so go and grab it. The next one I read was God of the Dead, which is the third in the Monsters and Mayhem books by Patrick McNulty. I read for Patrick, and I love these books. They are such fantastic horror stories. This one is about a young girl who turns up in this small town, and she's, you know, bedraggled and filthy, and everybody thinks she's a runaway, and they take her in, but she's not a runaway. She's something else. And anything I tell you is going to be a spoiler, and I don't want to do that. So just read this. He has such a wonderful way of crafting a story so that you're immediately pulled in. You absolutely love the characters, and you know something awful is going to happen to them, right? But he's just such a fantastic writer. I really, really enjoyed this one. There's 3 books in this series now. So, you know, grab them, my friends. They're on Kindle Unlimited, and they are a fantastic read. They're not too long, a couple of 100 pages, about 250 maybe. And I'll sped through this in an evening. I mean, it's just incredible. And the covers are stunning, aren't they? All the covers are this colour, the black, red and white thing. Such a good book, but this is a small town horror. Something coming into the town that looks innocent and that isn't. And even though she's innocent, the machinations of the people who are trying to find her. So good. Anyway, that was the third one. Oh, second one. Oh, second one. I'm already out of numbers. So we're not going to number. We're not going to say numbers. That's the best thing, Shaz. Right. The next one was a very short story called Afterlife of the Party by Rosie Talbot. If you've ever read 16 Souls by Rosie Talbot, then you know how much we all love Charlie and Sam. Don't we love them? Don't we want to be friends with them? I love them. I also absolutely love the ghosts. This is a short story that Rosie gave to people who pre-ordered her next book, 12 Bones, which is out, I think, on the 12th of October, which is the sequel to 16 Souls. This is a short story that takes place in between those two books in the summer. And it's basically Charlie and Sam and their other friends and the ghosts go to a house party. And it's the first time, really, that Charlie and Sam come out, really, as a couple, I suppose. As usual, this is fantastic LGBTQI rep and disability rep and undead rep. It's such a great little story. It was so lovely to pop back into the world. You know, I'm so looking forward to the new book, which I have pre-ordered, and which is in October. So that was a short story. The next one was Tell Me a Story. Tell Me a Story by Mia Dahlia. This was sent to me by the author to read and review. Never heard of this author before. Also, this is not really, I don't know really what it is. I suppose it's like, it is a bit horror, but not pure horror. It's about this man who was an addict living homeless on the street, and he's taken in and given a second chance by a bookshop owner, a bookseller. And the play between them is very similar to Zephyr Rail and Crowley in Good Omens, that kind of relationship. It's really beautiful, and he lives beyond the stacks. He's got like a bedroom made up beyond the stacks, the book stacks. But then it turns into something else, and perhaps the bookseller isn't all he seems to be. Perhaps he's got a history that he's trying to keep secret. And it's just a beautiful story of male friendship and redemption and somebody believing in you. It's just a beautifully written. The prose is gorgeous. It's such fun. I was so impressed. I love finding new authors, don't you? I mean, it's a thrill, isn't it? I loved it. But yeah, so it's basically about a bookshop. It's a story about a bookshop. We're book people. It's a story about a bookshop. Go and read it. Next one, With a Blighted Touch by J. Todd King Rea. This was sent to me as an ARC to read. It's out in October. This is horror. It's very, very visceral. It's basically a musician who's been sacked from his band, and he has an addiction problem. Goes back to his hometown. His hometown is blighted by, not only the vegetation is blighted, everything rots, but everybody in the town is beset by bad luck. And he goes back to see his father, who was abusive because his mom has died. And he looks into the people he went to high school with, and so many of them have died in strange ways. So he starts to look into it and realises, actually, some people in the town are certainly evil, but there's something worse than them. Supernatural something that is worse than them. And this is the story. It's an incredible, gory, visceral horror, and a great read. So I really enjoyed that. Next, That Night in the Woods by Christopher Triana. This was an ARC from NetGalley. I love Christopher Triana. Gone to See the Riverman is one of my favourite books by him. I also love The Prettiest Girl in the Grave. This is a story of friends. I think there's 6 of them all together, who went into the woods on Halloween when they were teenagers, and something bad happened to one of them, and so they've never spoken about it since. So one of their number has died, and in his will he asked all of them to come back to their town to talk about what happened on that night. And so they'll get called back by the one person who's stayed in the town. Very much like It, you know, the one guy stays there and all the others have gone away and forgotten. That's what it reminded me of anyway. And they all come back, they all start talking about their lives, and eventually they decide the only way to put this to rest is to go back into the forest and find out what they saw, if what they saw that night, which has creeped them out, was actually real. And then from there it turns into a very, very different story, a very kind of cultic horror. So it's all right. It's not my favourite by him. And I found the interactions between the main characters as adults to be quite immature. Some of the sexual innuendos within it I thought were just a bit kind of... They almost reverted back to how they were when they were teenagers. Right? We all remember what we were like as teenagers. We're almost running around with no direction. So I found that a bit disappointing. I also found the end a little bit meh. So it's not my favourite one by him. I'd say about 80% of the book is a fantastic, suspenseful, chilling horror. But the end is yeah. I wanted more. So I expect more from him, I suppose. But yes, it wasn't what I expected. But it's a good read nonetheless. Okay, and the next one, 72 Hours by E.M. McConnell. I saw this when I was scrolling through Kindle Unlimited, and I saw it was about a haunted asylum. And I love stuff like that. It's a novella, it's only a couple of 100 pages. So I thought, why not? Let's have a little look. And this is about a psychiatrist who's finishing her dissertation, which is going to make her name and make her famous. And so she goes to a renowned asylum where in the past experiments have taken place that are a bit, you know, dodgy. In fact, I suspect most asylums have got that, right? And weird things start happening. And she starts being haunted by the ghosts of a previous resident. And it takes a turn. It's a hell of a twist at the end. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was a really nice, quick read. Next one, Puzzle House by Duncan Ralston. This is also on Kindle Unlimited. It's the best thing I ever did get in that subscription, saving me a fortune. I love Duncan Ralston. Most of you, there you go. Most of you will have heard from him from Ghostland, which I absolutely loved, which is his Magnus Opum is huge. Such a creepy story in a carnival fun fair kind of place. Brilliant. But this one is his new one. And it's about 6 people who are drawn to this house where a world-renowned puzzle master has died. And they've gone there because the will has said, if you can survive the 6, or, you know, you can get through the 6, give it away then, the 6 rooms of this, like escape rooms of this house, then you can have the money. And, of course, it doesn't go to plan. Some of the characters are really self-involved, selfish. Some of them aren't. It's a real mix of characters, actually. It's really well done. And the story is a multi-layered horror. It's kind of mystery, logic, and there's lots of mythology. There is a lot of Mayan mythology within it and within the clues. And they have to find the clues to get out of the rooms before something deadly happens. Yeah, it's a great read. It's a really good read. It also turns into a kind of conspiracy, you know, like hidden secret organisations involved in societies. And yeah, it's a great mystery horror thriller. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Great read. The next one, Bad Vibrations by Lucy Lett. Now, this has been recommended to me by a lot of my horror mutuals. And this was also on Kindle Unlimited. Bargain. And this is about, basically, influencers who go mad. So there's this retreat in the middle of nowhere in this small town. And they're all trying to live a clean life, you know, with no toxins. And it's run by this guy who's kind of a guru. And the local people are not having it. They think they're all vampires because they do yoga, they have sex, and they drink blood to, you know, make themselves whole and vibrationally better. And anyway, the locals who are, you know, not happy about it, they turn up one night and a war starts. It is incredibly gory. The body horror is really visceral, but it has this wonderful dark vein of humour through it. Do you know what I mean? It's a satire, really. It's a satire on how some people involved in the influencer lifestyle can be so out of touch with reality. It's really good fun. I really enjoyed it. That was great fun. And then we go on to Beta, or Beta, however you want to say it, by Sammy Scott. I think this is my favourite read of the month. Sammy is an indie author. I've also got his compilation of short stories called Home with the Horrors, which I'm reading currently. He's very unwell at the moment, and but this is just such a good story. Oh my god! So it's about an author who basically agrees to spend 3 months in a state-of-the-art AI-controlled house in the middle of nowhere, where all his needs will be met, to basically beta test it for future houses to be built. And is this the way that the world's going to come? This is what we're going to do. Every need be met by AI. Has dual timelines with him living in the house and what happened prior to him living in the house. And it's a sci-fi horror. The technology is terrifying and powerful. It's really a treatise on how far would you let someone control your life. It's psychological minefield. The tech is terrifying. It's such an incredible story. It is so fast paced. I couldn't put it down. I was like, oh, what's going to happen next? Why can't this man see that this is not right? You know what I mean? And then what happens if the house won't let him go? What happens if the house needs him? Without him, what purpose does the house serve? This takes AI to its worst scenario and beyond. Incredible story. Read it, my friends. It's also on Kindle Unlimited, and the cover is beautiful, isn't it? Stunning. I think that was my favourite read. Pretty sure that was my favourite read of the month. The next one I read was also Kindle Unlimited, A Bloodsinger by Patrick McNulty, who I also read as The God of the Dead. This is one of his earlier books. It's a story about a boy who can speak and possess the dead. And he starts off when he's a child, when his mother's trying to, pray the evil out of him, because he's obviously possessed by something that enables him to do this. And he now works for a very shadowy organisation, and he's sent all over the place to do what he does. And then a ghost comes to him and asks him to save a child who's in danger. And he risks his life to do that. This is a novella. It's a couple of 100 pages, and it's a great story. It's a good story. I wanted more from it. I love Patrick's books, and I wanted to know more about the character. I wanted to know what happened afterwards. I wanted to know more about his life. I wanted to know what he could do. The Bloodsinger of the title is another mysterious, magical being who can actually pull the blood out of people. Oh my God. And listen to their thoughts and feelings. It's just so well done. But because I'm greedy, I wanted more story. Then the next one was this one, Agatha Christie by Lucy, a bit of a change of pace, by Lucy Worsley. This is the biography of Agatha Christie. This is incredibly well researched and written, with the support of her family. A lot of biographies about Agatha are not supported by the Christie family. This one is. She was allowed full access to their archives. It's a biography of a shy, complicated woman who lived through remarkable times. She was born in the Victorian era in a middle-class family with servants and well looked after them, and you know, expecting to be a lady, really, you know, and she grew up. And then the family fell on hard times, and she married a man that her family didn't think was suitable. And this is about her life story, and it also details how she felt about writing. She was a powerhouse of a writer, this woman. I mean, she wrote like 80 novels and short story collections. It is her stories. I love Agatha Christie. I'm sure most of you watching this do, because, you know, it's probably the first kind of thrillers we ever read, right? And a lot of them have dated poorly. But she was a woman of her time. Do you know what I mean? She really was. And this also details the trouble with her marriages, first marriage, a wonderful second marriage. The time she disappeared is touched on. Still quite a lot of mystery about what actually happened there. But it ties into the fact that family history is, you know, full of mental illness. So it's absolutely fascinating. And her trips abroad, you know, on archaeological digs with her second husband. It's just such a great story. She was an incredible woman, and I really love this. I love Lucy's books. I read the biography she did of Queen Victoria, which was also excellent. She's a great historian, and this is a really, really good biography. Onwards. The next one, this was the first one I read in the month after Gideon, which I'll get to in a bit. The City by S.C. Menders. This is Kindle Unlimited, and it is extreme horror. I'm giving that warning because this is like Blade Runner on steroids. It's basically a detective noir. There's this detective who loves solving puzzles, and he's brought in to deal with a really vicious murder that mirrors what happened to his wife previously. And it ends up with him going into basically an underground city that nobody really knows about, that's underneath the city he's in, that's basically run by aliens. This book has every trigger and content warning except homophobia and war. Every other one is in there. Please check those triggers before you go into this, because it has everything. It is gory, gruesome, visceral, body horror, abusive. Oh, but what an incredible debut. I've honestly never read anything like this. It's a story about the dark underbelly of society and the worst excesses of society, and one man's redemption. Incredible, really. But if you don't like extreme horror, I mean the extremist extreme horror, please don't read this, because no. Next one, The Hunt. This was a debut by Alexandra Nisneru, who is a friend of mine on social media, and I love this book. A beautiful cover, isn't it? And this is about, it's a very short novella, and this is about a brother and sister who basically take on the monster hunting legacy of their mother. Their mother was killed trying to protect her daughter from one of these monsters. I think it was a vampire. I read this very early in the month, but I think it's a vampire. But in this story, they're going after a monster that they need to get rid of, and they become the hunted. And then they befriend some other monsters who are the good guys, and they help them in that quest. It's just a lovely story about sibling and familial relationships, and, you know, how you feel that you have to carry on what your parents have done, and the guilt associated if something happens to your parents because of you. It's a wonderful novella. I'm looking forward to the next one. She's doing a sequel to this one, so hopefully that'll be longer, because I wanted a bit more, but I'm just greedy like that. Next, The Children of Red Peak by Craig DeLuey. Oh, this was a fantastic cultic horror. It's tall, and what's beautiful about it Certainly these children were in a cult. But what it started out was a really beautiful community that they created that was just a paradise for these people. The children were allowed to be children and the adults were allowed to just be themselves. And this beautiful sense of community completely destroyed by one man's, who's the leader of the community, decisions. And how quickly, and that's where the cultic aspect comes in, because how quickly the adults within this story believe him and do the most horrific things. At the end, they all disappeared, the cult members, and there was children left. And this is their tale when they meet up when one of them has died, and they relive what they went through, and then realise they have to go back to Red Peak to put those ghosts to rest. It's a really fantastic cultic horror. I love his writing. It's incredibly beautiful. I expect you'd call it, to a certain degree, it's like purple prose. It's very, very descriptive. I love that. But there's also a lot of horror elements in this, and it's a great story. Really good. Next, I read Dark Thoughts by Kevin J. Kennedy. This is a compilation of short stories by Kevin, and it's gloriously dark, little horror nuggets. It plays with the horror tropes really well, and it's got this kind of really dark vein of humour through it. My favourite story in this was the last one, which was in homage to Dark Mountain by Richard Lehman, and it was a fantastic story. If you've read that story, then you'll know what this is about. Yeah, really great read. Again, easy one to pick up and put down. Brilliant. Next. Oh, God. Where have we got to? Getting out of breath. Mischief Night by Mark Towers and E.C. Hansen. This is a home invasion horror story. It's about a family who on the surface are perfectly normal, but they're not. You know, the son feels like he's left out. The daughter's just come out of rehab. The mother is trying to pretend everything is okay, not only to her neighbours, but to her family, but is actually an alcoholic. And the father is completely disinterested in the family. And this takes place on Halloween Eve. And two people knock on the door. And it turns into a bit of a nightmare for the family. There's also an old, I think it's the father's father, I think, who the mother is taking care of and hates having to do that because he's a right old grumpy. And, but the family has severe problems, and this brings them all to light. And yeah, it's a great little horror novel, perfect for spooky season if you're looking for anything. And that's also on Kindle Unlimited, so bonus. The next thing I read, I do love an autobiography, and I read this one at the beginning of the month, Matthew Perry's autobiography. I don't like Friends, and I might be a controversial take. I never liked Friends. I just never watched it really, and the ones I did watch annoyed me. This is his life story, and it was okay. It's obvious the man struggled really badly with addiction and the inability to stop himself from staying sober. But it did become a little bit repetitive and a bit kind of, oh, poor me, feel sorry for me, a little bit, you know. So I got a bit annoyed with it. I did finish it. I mean, it's if you enjoyed Friends, you'll probably enjoy this. There's a lot of anecdotes from the set. But for me, it was, it was all right. Next one is also a memoir. Who is Nikki Nikubin? Nikki actually got in contact with me and asked if I'd read this. I've never heard of her. If there's anybody watching from the US, she probably have. She's quite famous in America, I believe, for what happened in Las Vegas. And she was thought to have been a spy from the Middle East. And this is an interesting memoir. It's all about how her life started and where she was brought up and what happened. It's a really interesting treatise in her struggles with bipolar and schizophrenia, and how the media portrayed her and how she really is. It's a lovely, poignant story. I really enjoyed it. Again, it's not a long story. It's probably a couple of 100 pages. It's if you know this girl and you want to hear her side of a story, then this is a great read. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now we move on to the physical books I read this month. So we're going to the book clubs we did first. So the first one is Deadly Attraction at Nightmare Hall. This was for Tales Point Horror. I love Point Horror books now. I've become a Point Horror fanatic. This is all Shelley's fault. But anyway, this is a series, I believe, Nightmare Hall. There were several books, but this is the one of them. And this is about a girl called Darlene, who is a townie, and she falls in love with the campus big guy, Robert Q, who is in the local college that's attached to the town. And then he just gets rid of her, really. He went out with her because he could, and he really wanted his old girlfriend back. In honesty, I don't think he wants any girlfriend. I think he's a narcissist, but and she doesn't take it well. And it becomes a slasher type killer on campus. Very, very 80s and 90s vibe. It's not as nostalgic, this one, I thought, as a lot of Point Horrors. It could really take place at any time. Apart from the fact that they don't have mobile phones, so they have to, find a landline. It doesn't date it as much as a lot of other Point Horrors. But nonetheless, it was a really good fun read. Very quick read. It's only little. This is secondhand, obviously. But yeah. And yeah, who's the killer on campus? There's a lot of red herrings. A lot of people who it could be. Hell of a twist. Next one, the YA Book Club 2023 with Amy McCaw, September. Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendara Blake. I had both of these books, Anna Dressed in Blood and Girl of Nightmares, I think is the second one. I've just never got around to reading them, so it's a good job, really, isn't it? So I really, really enjoyed this. The boy in this, Kaz, is a ghost hunter who's following again in the legacy of his father, who was killed doing that job. And he travels around with his mom, who's a witch, and goes to different places to take out ghosts who are harming the living. And he ends up in this place where there's a house that is haunted by Anna, who was murdered when she was a teenager. And her dress drips in blood. In this town, he tries to keep things solo, but in this one, he ends up having to he ends up with friends, basically, which he's never had before. And they aid him in trying to decide what to do with Anna, because his feelings for her start to change and he realises that he loves her. That aspect of it, I didn't like. I would have preferred if it was a weird, twisted kind of ghost living person friendship. I found the romance element of it. But I do in anything. So that's just me. But I love Kendara's writing. She makes the characters so incredibly realistic, and like you know them. And yeah, this was a great story, and I really enjoyed it. So it was really good. But have I put anything else down about this one? It's a great YA horror. That's what I've put. That's my prompt. Great YA horror. It's a good job I remember what I'm reading. Anyway, that was a really good read. I'll probably carry on with the second one at some point. But yeah, Anna Dressed in Blood. The next one I read was The Dowry of Blood as a blood theme. Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And this is the story of the bride of Dracula, the original bride of Dracula, Constanta, who was a peasant girl. And she almost dies and Dracula turns her, obviously. And this is the most incredible story. It's something I wouldn't normally read. There is passion and obsession and deceit and like all-consuming love. because Dracula, once he's been with Constanta for a while, brings in two other characters, another woman and an actor. And Constanta has to decide in the end, who does she choose? The two people who are a family now or a husband. It's beautifully written in letter form. Basically, she writes in letter form to Dracula to explain, you know, what she feels and what she thinks. It's beautiful. It's kind of heartbreakingly gentle. And even in the midst of the horrors they have to commit to live, because obviously they're vampires, really gloriously gothic. It's probably what tipped it for me, to be honest. But I love a gothic horror. But yeah, beautiful read. Next was A Bitter Remedy by Alice Hawkins. This was a tandem read-along. I don't do many read-alongs. Don't really have the time, to be honest, to commit to, you know, post so many times. But I fancied this one. This is an historical mystery set in Jesus College in the 1910s. When they first started to allow women to attend lectures. They couldn't take the exams, but they could attend the lectures. And this is about a boy who is off campus because of issues he's had. And he's found dead. And Basil, who was his tutor and is an undergraduate, he's kind of blamed for it. And he has to prove that it's not him. And so he teams up with one of the only women on campus, Rhiannon Nunn, who's a feisty Welsh woman, to discover what's happened, who killed him, basically. This is such a good mystery thriller, and Nunn is fantastic at a time when oh, I had a choking fit then, Lois, but I'm back. This was at a time when women were property, basically. It was all about who you married, and you belonged to your father and then you belonged to your husband, and the inequalities in this. And I know it's historical fact. They were grating, man. They were really grating. I mean, she basically solves the whole mystery and nobody will let her take credit. It's brilliant, really good. It's also got a cameo by C.S. Lewis. Interesting, but loved it. Great book. Next. Oh, itchy eye, itchy eye. This was one of my most anticipated reads of September. A Taste of Darkness, edited by Amy McCall and Maria Kuzniar. This is a short story collection, an anthology, because they're all different authors, of the powerhouses of YA female fiction. Oh, this is brilliant. There wasn't a bad story. Now, this is rare, isn't it? Do you know that you come across a compilation where all the stories are good? I mean, there's everything in here from haunted forests and houses. There's saints and sinners and monsters. And, oh, it is just glorious. It covers so many genres. Each story is different. There's no theme. They are literally a taste of different darkness tropes. Do you know what I mean? The supernatural, cultic, cosmic, gothic, contemporary, historical. I mean, it's just incredible. Absolutely loved this. If you want something for spooky season, or any time from now till December, really, because this will be a great read of December as well. You know, Firelight Tales. I might do a series of Firelight Tales, Tales from the Book Nook, where I just read to you. But this is absolutely fantastic. Really brilliant read. If you want something for spooky season, pick this up. It is absolutely worth it. And you don't have to read them in order because they don't follow a similar theme. You can pick and choose which ones you read. And it's a wonderful showcase for the incredible writing skills of these women. So impressed. So impressed. I'll probably read it again later in the year. Yeah, I'll read it straight through from beginning to end. But yeah, brilliant book. This one I won't talk about much because I talked about it before. Gideon the Ninth was my first book of the month, and as I said, this is a techno gothic sci-fi mystery murder thriller. Absolutely loved it. I've yet to start Harrow. I did start it and then I got distracted, but absolutely loved this. I thought it was brilliant. I love the fact that, unlike a lot of fantasy, because it certainly is fantasy too, fantasy sci-fi I guess, but unlike a lot of fantasy, it let you discover the world building as you went on. It made you realise your own intelligence. It was like a puzzle, a beautiful, dark puzzle. Loved it. And then the last book of the month, hallelujah, you'll say. The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. This is gorgeous, isn't it? This is the Waterstone Special Edition. I love these books. They are the most cosy murder mysteries, and often the deaths in them are quite gruesome, to be fair. But the gang, oh my God, I just love them so much. Especially Joyce. Joyce is my absolute favourite because she's insane. She really is. Oh God, it was just so good. Ibrahim, who's one of there's four of them, you know, Ibrahim, Ron, Elizabeth and Joyce, and they are the Thursday night murder club. Ibrahim finally gets to open up to someone about the love of his life. Ron realises that he needs to change slightly for the love of his life. And Elizabeth realises she's losing the love of her life. This is different from the others. I mean, there's obviously a murder mystery in it, which involves drug trafficking across continents and an antique dealer, a friend of theirs, who gets murdered because he's taken in a package and it's gone missing, which is in antique. And so that's going on in the background, but also there's this beautiful thread through this of Elizabeth's husband, Stephen, who is suffering from dementia and his decline, and how that affects the whole dynamic of the group, and Elizabeth herself, who, you know, was a spy master and so is an incredibly resilient woman. I just loved it. I think that Richard is actually going on to write something else now and giving the gang a little bit of a rest, and I think they deserve it. Do you know what I mean? I think this is the fourth. Is this the fourth book? Yeah, this is the fourth book in like 5 years. Do you know what I mean? They need a break from all the murder and mayhem so that they can just have a little rest. You know, these people are elderly. But yeah, if you haven't read any of these, I would really recommend them. They are lovely, cozy, comfortable murder mysteries, but so well written. And the dialogue is so sparky and funny, and oh, the way they speak to each, it's just so funny. Loved it. Love this copy. This copy is a Waterstone special, and it does have an extra bit at the end, a bonus like short story. So that was it. That was September. Phew. On to October, my friends, which I will film in a minute of what I'm going to do for October. It's spooky season all year for me, so it was quite difficult to make a choice about what I was going to read. But yes, I hope you all had a fantastic September. I hope you enjoyed everything you read. I had a really good September. There was a couple that were a bit, you know, disappointing. But all in all, I think I had a really good month. So, yeah. Thank you for watching till the end. This was a long one. You take care, my friends. Happy reading.